Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live.
Hello.
My name is Daniel Cott and I wish I could say I was delighted to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith,
This is more like it.
That's it.
This is more like it.
Listen, the gloves
a bit
are
of needle.
The gloves are off after the way I was treated last night. And that's why, do you know, the other guy on here tonight, he's lucky he's getting an introduction. The one and only Scott McDermott. Scott, how's it going?
I'm good, Daniel. I was hoping you two were going to start with an apology after I get treated last night with score prediction.
Well, Scott, we both said a Celtic win, didn't we? There was one man in the chat that didn't.
Yeah, hands up.
That's it.
Hands up. That performance and result really took me by surprise. I have to admit it. I'd go as far as to say, when you actually analyse what's just going on, I did say after, to be fair to myself, after Atalanta away, I felt that was a coming-of-age performance from Celtic in the Champions League. And I said, if they can roll that template out into the next game, they can start to grow in this competition and feel like they belong there. That all said, the standard that he achieved, that Brendan Rodgers achieved last night, was surprisingly good. It was excellent. He's now rattled off his probably best away performance and result in the Champions League, and backed it up with his best home performance in the Champions League. And they now look, I mean, they let's get it right, they were phenomenally good in parts of that game and throughout the game. It was almost a 10 out of 10 European performance from Celtic. And I say that even though they went a goal behind. In fact, I say it because they went a goal behind. And they reacted to it in the way they did. There was a serious danger when Leipzig went in front that Celtic could unravel again.
They nearly scored right away, Leipzig again.
You're looking at it thinking, are we about to get a repeat of the Dortmund thing? But you got the exact opposite. Yes, it was a hairy 5 minutes or so. They regrouped. They dug really deep. They actually went through a period where they did sit in, they get back into their banks, they weathered the storm, and then Nicholas Kuhn comes up with the goal that kind of changes the whole process of the match. And it was a stunning, stunning individual goal. But I have to tell you, I prefer the second goal.
From a team point of view?
Just because I think that's everything that Brendan Rodgers would have had in his mind's eye for how he wants to see his Celtic team approach and attack Champions League matches. There's about 5 players going into a sort of a manic press on the edge of the German box. It was crazy stuff. But it was brilliant. And then amidst all that fury, Rio Tati actually plays a no-look pass into the box for Greg Taylor, who was superb. Greg Taylor was superb throughout, and that's another thing I'll come to. His cutback is brilliant. Kuhn scores again. That one's a better goal. And then when Celtic go on and 2 becomes 3 after the break, great stuff again. But see, at that point, 3-1, how many times have we seen Celtic getting in good positions and then really struggle? What impressed me probably more than anything else was at that point, they actually looked, they were playing through Leipzig. They were, Leipzig were trying to press, trying to get themselves back into the game. Celtic had the composure, the precision with the passing, everything that Rodgers has called for. And they had complete control of the game when they get 2 goals up. So much so it got to the point, Leipzig, you could actually almost see them visibly chucking it. Because they had no answer for it. Now that's the team sitting second place in the Bundesliga right now. And you've got to take that context into it as well as the fact that it was only a few weeks ago that Celtic were savage butchered by Borussia Dortmund, who are below Leipzig. When you take everything into context, it tells you what a sensational performance that was from Celtic.
There's so many players, Scott, that we could go through in the team, but you mentioned one there, Keith, and I might open a can of worms here, but I thought McGregor was unreal last night.
Here, Scotty, were you not tipping Greg Taylor to get axed again last night? Man of predictions.
I was wondering when that was going. I thought Alex Valle might keep his place, obviously, but listen, I've got great competition there at left back. I mean, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what one you put in. You feel as if they're going to. You feel as if they know the role to a T. Now, even Valle has only come in the summer. They know exactly what Rodgers is looking for. Brendan Rodgers touched on it actually the weekend when he brought Greg Taylor on. He says he brought him on to clean up the game against Aberdeen towards the end. So these guys just know their roles down to a T, and he was brilliant last night. But as I'm sure you're going to mention, Daniel, you could have rhymed every player in that team. But like you, I have to say, it almost sounds a bit cliched now, and you're almost kind of running out of superlatives. I thought Callum McGregor last night was phenomenal.
It was different class, different
class. But I tell you, I couldn't agree more. He was just sensational. It was probably Callum McGregor's best Champions League match that I've seen him play. He was all over it in the middle of the pitch. One thing I would say, Scott, tactically, and this is again, I'm going to give Brendan Rodgers a huge compliment on it. I think there was a reason that he played Greg Taylor, and you're saying that him and Vi both understand. Well, I think Taylor gives you something different, and I think it's because of the education that he got under Ange Postecoglou and the inverted full-back role. Because there were points in the game last night, and I am convinced that this is why it was Taylor that got the go-ahead from the manager at the start. He was just slipping into midfield, and it was almost as if Celtic would then become three at the back, and Greg Taylor would be in beside Callum McGregor. And that actually, when Callum McGregor was so exposed in Dortmund, when Dortmund were countering against him, well, there was two of them sat in there at that point, and it then allowed Hatate and Engels to play that little bit, not big gaps the way it was in Germany, but just that little bit further forward, and it allowed Celtic to be more progressive through the middle of the pitch. I think that's why Taylor played last night, and I'd have to go further than that and say he was absolutely superb at it.
And look, I said a minute ago, it feels almost churlish to single anyone out, because Celtic as a team were fantastic to a man. But opening a can of worms, right? I think if everyone in that Celtic team is playing to their maximum, I think Rio Hatate is the best player. Let's see last night. I thought he was incredible last night. Everything about his game, just first class in every department. That's not taken away from McGregor, who's brilliant. I mean, even trusty Carter Vickers.
Scales when he came on.
Scales when he came on as well, I know. Do you know who caught my eye, which will not get brought up by anyone? But see Yang when he came on.
He better than he has done, yeah. And obviously he must be doing something right, because he get picked in front of James Forrest to come on, yeah.
Aye, so there was so many players, but that was one of those games last night. Hatate, the no-look pass, just everything he did was just absolutely brilliant.
And he nearly split them open on a few occasions with 30, 40, 50 yard passes. Yeah, it was terrific.
See Hatate though, Daniel, I agree with you, he was absolutely brilliant, but I think that's the performance for Hatate that Brendan Rodgers has always known was in him. But I think Brendan Rodgers would tell you that it hasn't come out enough. I think he's a player that's frustrated Rodgers a bit since he's come back in. And if you remember right, I think when Brendan Rodgers initially came back, I think Hatate was
dropped.
Aye. Well, Scott, we were saying last night that a lot of us thought Bernardo would start ahead of him.
Yeah. I think he frustrates him at times, because he does give the ball away at times. He tries those passes, that are great when they come off, but when they don't and they leave you in trouble going the other way. And I think Rodgers just wants him to be a bit more secure in possession. And also, I think when the manager came in, Hatate wasn't working hard enough, and his work rate last night was incredible, and that kind of underpinned his performance. He was absolutely brilliant.
Let me run through some of the comments that we've had sent in.
See, before you do that,
of course. What
are you drinking? What is that?
We had a production chat about this beforehand, because it
looks like a sample.
It looks like a sample you take to It's Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah.
And I thought I'd take it out of the bottle, but it looks like I thought I'd get away with it being like diluting juice.
Can you do that? You've just done a branding thing there as well.
That's true. Other fizzy drinks are available.
As if the green polo night wasn't bad enough, he's now got a green drink.
Right, this is becoming an HR matter. Right. Listen, I'll say to both of you, right? Revenge at this best served cold, don't you worry, right?
Unlike your sample there, which is room temperature, clearly.
Listen, don't you worry, I've got something planned, don't you worry.
Oh, yes.
Right. Jack Jones, as much as I love watching Ange's team, there was no real progress in Europe. Brendan has improved us from last season. Luckily for him, he's adopted a good chunk of Ange's squad. where Ange had a total rebuild in his hands and brought in some terrific footballers. So it's been a 4 or 5 season project that's starting to come good. I'm watching live, Stephen Curry on Facebook. Celtic will not be the whipping boys. We're breeding confidence every game. This one from Andy McLaren. Any chance Celtic can get top 8? We'll come back to that in a little minute. And Robbie here, good to see. This is way too long, Robbie. I can't get through all that. But he's saying good on the Daily Record for cheering on Scottish football. Celtic need to watch. They don't settle for qualifying for a playoff place because they have everything going for them to bypass that and go for the top 8 spot. So, where do you guys stand on the top 8 spot? Do you think
it's become realistic after last night? No doubt.
Going back, I know we like our stats chats.
Blinded me with the boffin sign.
Scott, you're a more modern man.
Yeah.
You'll buy into this. If Celtic get to 10 points, they're 99% guaranteed a playoff spot, right? If they get to 16...
Allegedly.
If they get to 16 points, according to Opta, they're 95% guaranteed a top 8 spot. So they're on 7 points now. If they beat Young Boys and Bruges at home, they'd need another win from Zagreb and Villa away, which obviously is 2 tough games. But 16 points, you're more or less guaranteed a top 8 spot.
More or less guaranteed.
95%.
Well, do you know what? Let's just wait and see.
Aye, we're getting a bit greedy now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Aye. Well, I would say to finish on Celtic, if we're going to finish...
It gives you a 99.78% chance of winning the Champions League.
There's a 100% chance you two are going to get weapons, by the way, with this polo neck nonsense. I'm going to get his back wearing the polo neck, looking class. Anyway...
It came out of nowhere, didn't you?
Anyway, what was I saying? Aye, Celtic. I think
University challenged here.
Is this live? Is this really went out? Right? I think that was the best Celtic performance and victory. There's only one game since Barcelona in 2012 that I can think might rival it. Lazio away.
It was a very good night for Celtic, that one.
But aside from that, I can't really.
That was up there. I've written a piece today. It's online just now. It's in tomorrow's paper, and I've mentioned that since the turn of the century, in recent times, there have been some great European campaigns. There have been some brilliant moments within those campaigns. I'm talking about Martin O'Neill's Celtic, Gordon Strachan and the Seven Dwarfs Celtic, Neil Lennon in Barcelona. Then you had Walter Smith and the incredible run that he went on to Manchester. Which, by the way, is a case study in top level football management, considering what he had at his disposal and what he was able to get out of that team. Incredible stuff with some monumental performances within it. Yep. The UEFA Europa League Thursday nights at Ibrox became this phenomenon under Van Bronckhorst when Rangers got to Seville. So there have been some outstanding achievements, but taken in isolation, that 90 minutes last night was as good as anything that I can remember from any points of these games. And I've followed that Celtic side all the way to Seville. I was just about every tie. The stand, and there's recency bias, right? I accept that because 24 hours ago. But I was struggling to remember. As I was watching the game last night, I was actually struggling to remember as an impressive single European performance from any of the Scottish sides since the turn of the century. That's the level you're talking about last night.
We've actually had a couple of responses to your column online. Michael Stewart has written in...
Not that one.
So Jackson's being unfair. Ange needed time and money. His player knowledge and experience rebuilt Celtic in the blink of an eye and provided the mantra never stop.
It really wasn't an attack on Ange. I don't think Michael's quite getting the point.
I was going to say that. Last night, the Germans stopped and paid for it. I'm loving this new format. No more foregone conclusions and tacky, methodical football, looking for draws away from home. I did think that. It wasn't like you were saying Ange wasn't great. It was just more...
No, the thing was that and the whole point of the column was that Brendan Rodgers said when he replaced Postecoglou that he banged the drum about, I want to make us competitive, a successful, a serious European side. And you're looking at it going, well, you kind of have to say that because what else you got to do? Ange has already done everything domestically. He's picked up the treble baton and he's run with it. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing to excite Celtic supporters about the thought, well, apart from the fact that it would be more domestic dominance. But he kept hammering the ticket for Europe. And to me, it felt far-fetched. because Ange Postecoglou wasn't capable of doing it. Brendan Rodgers wasn't capable of doing it previous to that. It felt as if the gap was becoming too big to bridge. Brendan Rodgers has proven in these last 2 games with 7 points from 12 now in the Champions League, he's proving as good as his word. He made a promise, he's now delivering on the promise. That was the point in the column. It wasn't ever a kick at Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And Scott...
Daniel, I'm just going to say the thing about Postecoglou and what he started, and it was the kind of main highlight of the game last night for me, was just the pace and the speed that Celtic played at, and the quality they had alongside that. I mean, that's what Rodgers has banged on about for long enough, but last night felt like he'd hit the jackpot in terms of what he was looking for these players. It almost felt like, people might not think that's a compliment, but to me it was of Premier League standard last night, top level Premier League pace and speed and intensity, and that's what he's been looking for. And it's hard to know, it's hard to say what the kind of differences are, because Ange is a brilliant manager, and you've just discussed what he kind of started at Celtic, and listen what he's doing now at Spurs. But when I think back to some of the European games with Ange, obviously he wanted to play with that speed and intensity, but it felt a bit too gung ho, if that makes sense. Whereas, as Jacko touched on right at the start, the key thing about last night was there was a maturity about it, about the whole performance, as well as the pace. It's almost like the players who were there under Ange have learned from it. He's brought new players in who have bought into it, and I think he's probably increased the quality in terms of the guys that have come in, and it just all seemed to come together last night.
It's a good point, Scott. It's almost as if there's 2 different elements here. If you could, I know that you're talking about what's the better Celtic team, Brendan Rodgers' invincible team, or this one now. I think the difference is, and Scott's just hit the nail right in the head, this is the first Brendan Rodgers side, almost as if it's been Angified, and he's taken the ingredients that he really liked from what Postecoglou was doing and combined it with his own thing. And it's felt like a natural growth. But you cannot take away from the fact that Brendan Rodgers' fingerprints are all over this. Yes, the Postecoglou intensity and the speed and all that. And I think that Brendan Rodgers kind of knew that last season. I think he felt that some Celtic fans weren't best pleased with the style of Celtic's play, because it wasn't just as easy on the eye or as entertaining as what Ange Postecoglou had brought previously. And I think that he's been conscious of that, and that has fed into it as well. And what you've got now is just about a perfect combination of the two. So yeah, it's a really interesting point. I think Scott's onto something there. There are elements of the Postecoglou style that remain.
Yeah.
But Brendan Rodgers has tweaked it and improved it and got Celtic into a situation now where you are looking and thinking he is delivering on that promise that he made. We
had the graphic up on screen there about Rodgers' team that won the Invincible treble in 2017, and obviously last night's team. Which team do you take? Is this Rodgers' best Celtic team that he's currently got?
Well, I certainly think it's the best squad that he's ever had.
Best squad.
Yeah,
because that starting lineup there, Dembele, serious player. Sinclair was great. Even Armstrong and Scott Brown.
Yeah, Scott Brown's going to be in the team, isn't he? So if you were doing
a combined one, no, if you had to take which team would win?
That again, recency bias, but I'll go with last night.
I'd probably go with last night as well. Yeah. I don't know what you think, Scott.
Just because of that speed that I think there's a lot more speed in that the current team, and that's nothing against guys like Scott Brown but like for instance, Dembele's not going to close down people at the back. Who does? Jacko's talking about a second goal last night where he just hounded Leipzig in that corner. You couldn't really see Dembele and Patrick Roberts and Michael Lustig and people doing that. Do you know what I mean? They've just the profile of these players now. When you think of the way the modern game is, it's just perfect for it. That high press, real speed and intensity and aggression, and as I say, they've got the quality to actually make it count.
Scott mentioned Patrick Roberts there, and do you know what really caught my eye? I thought Kuhn he just looks so much like Patrick Roberts, but he's like Patrick Roberts 2.0. I mean, that goal,
It couldn't seem to click or flick at a switch somewhere deep inside him last night that just went from, yes, he's been much better this season than he was when he first arrived, but he went up about 4 levels.
Even the ball was outside his foot for Maeda.
It was I mean, I've seen some passes this season. That Jamie McGrath's pass at Celtic Park.
Aye.
I remember, Scotty, I think you were there, Celtic at home at Atletico Madrid. There was a pass from Matt O'Reilly for one of the goals that was sublime. That one was up there. That was a thing of beauty to watch.
Aye. That's just a guy with all the confidence in the world.
But I admire him because at that point, that's if you call the point in the game where I'm saying Celtic have fallen back into shape, survival mode a little bit because it had got hairy for 5 minutes. But Kuhn was the one that went, well, do you know what, right, you guys do that stuff, we survive this, give me the ball and I'll go and do something. And I must admit, when he cut inside off the right flank, I'm looking going, you're not taking that on, are you? I don't know if you're good enough to do that, son.
Aye.
And then ping.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, that was breathtaking.
See the thing with Kuhn, Jacko, like obviously when he came in, I don't think Celtic fans were too enamoured.
No, they weren't at all, Scott. No, they weren't.
But you know what? To me, that is all down to Brendan Rodgers.
Again, yeah.
I think we sometimes forget that a manager's job is to improve players and make them better on an individual level. And the Nicholas Kuhn you seen last night was night and day compared to the one that came in. And I think it's huge testament to Rodgers. He's done it again. He did it previously when I think of guys just off the top of my head like Stuart Armstrong, Ryan Christie, people like that who I think went up a couple of levels working under.
Scott Brown went up levels as well.
Yeah, exactly.
At a point in his career when you thought you'd probably seen the best Scott Brown. Scott Brown went up, and that again is the Brendan Rodgers factor.
I remember after that Scottish Cup semi-final they lost to Rangers. I remember everyone saying, is that Brown maybe he was 31 or whatever, and then as you say, he got best football of his career after that. Just before we finished in Celtic last night, whatever, I thought it was worth mentioning Austin Trusty again, just because it looks to me, I don't know what you guys think, but it looks to me like Trusty, Carter Vickers, that is the partnership, and it's harsh on Scales. He'll come in because Carter Vickers has injury issues and what have you, but I thought they just looked formidable last night.
That's probably at this moment in time his first choice pairing, but as you said, they've got a lot of games, a heavy schedule of matches. Scales will get plenty of time, and Scales showed when he came on last night. Again, Scott mentioned Brendan Rodgers and this ability to improve players.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a guy that he's been one that I've been talking about since the start of the season, very early days, Scott, that you can just see there are kind of growth spurts that some players get under Brendan Rodgers.
Yep.
And Scales has been, and so much so, in fact, that he's been keeping Trusty out of the team up until this kind of point in the season. But I still think Scales has got a lot of football. But if you're asking me right now, well, you saw with your own eyes what Brendan Rodgers' first 11 looks like right now, because that's what you put out last night.
And Keith mentioned this. Keith mentioned the Celtic squad there, and I think this is the beauty of this Celtic pool of players now. You think of their next test is away to Kilmarnock. I mean, talk about a come down going for last night, the electricity of last night, the atmosphere, the surface, the magnitude of the game, and then they need to go to Rugby Park on Sunday on a plastic pitch. But you know what? I'll bet you, I don't want to start predicting teams again because I got it wrong last night, but I'd expect Adam Ida to come in for Kyogo, different type of game at Kilmarnock. Ida comes in, he's fresh. You mentioned Bernardo earlier on. I'd probably expect him to come into midfield for his energy and his drive, which are probably going to need against Kelly. That's the beauty of this squad now. Rodgers can just change it and tinker with it to suit the opposition, the venue, the circumstances, and that's why... Wouldn't be surprised,
Scott, to see Luke McCowan as well.
Aye.
Exactly.
No bad options, eh?
But that is the point, and this is why we spoke about it previously some weeks ago, towards the end of the transfer window, or at the end, or after the end of the transfer window, that he's now got the squad that he needed, whereby previous campaigns, Celtic might have played in a Champions League match midweek and then tailed off at the weekend because either he didn't have the quality to replace. The ones that were coming into the starting lineup weren't of a similar quality to the ones who were coming out. Or the flip side of that was sometimes in the Champions League matches, Celtic would get into a good position in a match, but couldn't maintain the physical effort and demands required at that level. So he couldn't make the changes that kept the quality on the pitch.
Yeah.
And so just Celtic, whether it was during the Champions League matches or after the Champions League matches, suffered inevitable drop-offs. But with the squad that he's got now and with the quality that can be dripped in and out of the team, they're just in a really, really strong, healthy position. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why he did bang on over a succession of transfer windows for quality. He needed quality, not quantity. Had enough players, but he needed to find players who, if you need to make a change, then the level, the standard isn't going to, drop off the edge of a cliff. As no, I'm not saying that was necessarily the case, dropping off the edge of a cliff, but there was certainly a noticeable downturn. Now, not so much.
And he's shown what he can do when he's given that money. Right, we could talk about Celtic all night, but obviously Rangers have a really big game in the Europa League tomorrow away to Olympiacos. Earlier on today, I caught up with Record Sports' Andy Newport, who is in Greece for the game, and here's what he had to say. The one and only Andy Newport joins us now on the Hotline Live, all the way from, well, it's not quite Athens, is it, Andy? It's Greece, but not quite Athens.
It's a bit like Paisley compared to Glasgow. It's next door, but it's not quite in. But listen, we'll just call it Athens, all right?
When you're there, obviously ahead of Olympiacos versus Rangers tomorrow. Before we come on to that one, Andy, I haven't caught up with you since the Motherwell semi-final. Did you see it as signs of progress for Philip Clement and Rangers, or was it papering over the cracks?
Listen, at Rangers, as any of the players, the managers will tell you, at the end of the day, it comes down to winning games, and they managed to do that. But yet again, it's a performance that I don't think really offers much room for encouragement in terms of team performance. Yeah, they were better in the second half, and they obviously get the goal in the end. But listen, I think this is a Rangers team that still has so much work to do. And what I did think was encouraging for a Rangers point of view, I think if you're a Rangers supporter and you see Danilo coming back on, that final 20 minutes, I think you saw signs of perhaps how the team could look with a proper, fully functioning centre forward who can link up play, who can come in, who can join in and really be a competent part of the team. I think we saw in the first half what Cyril Dessers offers this team just isn't good enough right now. Obviously, he does get his goal in the second half, but he should have had 2 and an assist in the first half. So I think if you're a Rangers supporter, you'll be thinking the sooner they can get Danilo or any half decent striker in that team, the better, because it's the one thing that can quickly make a difference to this team.
But it is weird with Dessers. We spoke about it many times on the Hotline Live that the chance he missed in the first half the other day was mad. It was really, a sitter, I guess. But he still scored and Rangers did win. So it's a kind of weird one. Like, he could turn around and go, well, look, I scored a crucial goal today and we get through.
Yeah, but as you say, he should have had 2, he should have had 3 and an assist. So, just saying I scored 1 goal, I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's good enough for this team. I don't think it's good enough for the fans. And right now, it's good enough for Philippe Clement because that's all he's got to work with. Gamani, as we spoke about, isn't up to speed yet. It'd be harsh to throw him in, I think, and be say he's your number 1 striker. You've got to rely upon him. I do think he deserves more game time than he's getting at the minute, but it'd be a tough ask of him to throw him in and go, right, you're the Rangers number 9 starting from now on. What they need is Danilo to come back to fitness and to offer what he did at the tail end of last year when Rangers were flying in the first few months under Philippe Clement. He's not a prolific goal scorer, but he just makes the whole rest of the team make sense in a way that doesn't make sense at the moment. So for me, I think obviously he's not in the European squad because of his injury troubles, but Rangers need to get away with him into the team. For Hearts on Sunday, they need to get him away that they can get him fit enough to be playing, as many minutes as possible, as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. I've never been to any of the Olympiacos or Panathinaikos games or stadiums, Andy, but I imagine from what I see on TV, it looks like a pretty intimidating place. Is this a game that maybe Philip Clement could do without right now, given everything else that's going on?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, like, listen, we've sort of been operating on a sort of game-by-game basis recently in terms of what it means for his future. I'm not entirely sure that this game falls into that bracket. I think if Rangers lose here, it's the clamour for Philippe Clement to go. Is it going to ramp up in the back of this? Unless it's obviously a heavy defeat, then obviously that would add to it. But I think if they lose narrowly here, I'm not sure this is going to be something that's going to change a lot of people's minds. I think what's more important is Sunday's game against Hearts. You know, if they lose that and fall even further behind the top two, then the argument for sticking with them gets harder and harder to make. So, listen, this place will be intimidating. Obviously, I've just had a quick look behind me. I don't know if you've had a much chance.
Aye, looks class, aye.
Yeah, it's quite a modern stadium. I think this end here to my right hand side, this is the notorious Gateway 7, which I think is where their ultras are based. So I'm expecting this to be pretty feisty. But Rangers have been in sort of intimidating atmosphere before. I'm not sure that's a factor anymore that it's going to phase them too much.
And we've said before, Andy, that in terms of his style of play and kind of results, I mean, aside from the Lyon game was a bad one, but Malmo and stuff like that, Philip Clement's Rangers team kind of looks almost a wee bit better in Europe and better suited to that style of play.
Yeah, when they're not having to. I mean, I think what we've all noticed about Rangers right now is that they struggle to break teams down when they sort of sit in and make space difficult. So what playing in Europe offers you is the chance to have a wee bit of room to manoeuvre. There's going to be counter-attack opportunities. There's going to be times where we're going to obviously have to sustain a wee bit of pressure, sit in, soak it up. But when the chance is on, they need to break quickly. And what they need to do is what they didn't do at the weekend is be clinical and take every chance that comes along, because you might only get 2 or 3 at this level. So they can't be as wasteful as they were at Hampden.
And just finally, Andy, prediction. I like putting you in the spot. How do you think it'll go tomorrow night?
I've already been asked to do this for the paper, so I went 1-0 Olympiacos. If you look at the records of both teams, even in the league, I think Olympiacos have only won 5 of their 10 league games. They're identical in terms of they both get 6 points from 3 Europa League games. They've both beaten Malmo. They've both lost to Lyon. I think it'll be tight, but I just think the home advantage might give Olympiacos the edge, and it'll be a 1-0 victory to Olympiacos. But listen, I'm here to be proved wrong, so we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Andy, I hope it's an absolute cracker for you. I hope it's a really good game, and safe travels back when the time comes.
Thanks, pal.
Cheers, Andy. Andy Newport there in Greece side of the game tomorrow. Before we talk about Rangers, guys, let me start you with this comment from Rangers Easy OK watching live on YouTube. Sterling should be in from the start tomorrow, but he won't. The captain will plod on and think he's having a good season. It's a joke. Manager is limping on until the inevitable happens. Likes of Czerny, Barami, Sterling, Diomande, Danilo and Igaman would all thrive under a better manager. Until then, we have no chance and will regress further while watching our rivals get stronger. Scott, do you think that's a fair summation?
Listen, it's hard for the Rangers fans, Daniel, because they're second best in every department. Really, Celtic were the third best in terms of the Premiership table. So it's tough. It's tough for them to take. Listen, I actually agree on the Sterling point. It kind of baffles me slightly at the kind of lack of minutes that Dujon Sterling's played in general since he's joined Rangers, and I know he's had the captain James Tavernier ahead of him. I know he's went into different positions, but I just look at what Rangers lack, in terms of speed and power and strength and ability on the ball. And I think Sterling has all them. So he came on at the weekend, and along with Danilo, as Andy touched on, I thought they turned the game in Rangers' favour in the second half. So it's finding a position for Sterling. Do you bring him in place of Tavernier? I honestly think it's getting to that point. I don't think
Scott, I was saying, I think last night, if you're Philip Clement, right, and you're thinking straight, and you realise that you're about to play Celtic in a couple of weeks' time next month, in the cup final, surely you have to look at now taking Tavernier out the team, sticking Sterling in there and giving him a run and just seeing what you're going to get from him and give him that chance to build up some momentum, because what he can't do is put Tavernier up against Maeda again. Exactly. So surely now is the time that you go to Dujon Stella and say, right, I'm going to give you a run of games here, let's see what you can do. Surely that has to be part of his thinking, if he's thinking straight.
100%. I mean, how many times have we been on here after Old Firm games that we've spoke about the influence Maeda's had, and yet the managers, whether it was Michael Beale or Philippe Clement, don't seem to want to change it for some reason. Don't want to seem to drop the captain.
Well, sorry, just to jump in, Scott, do you think that's because up until now, Tavernier has always come up with a goal? They don't want to take him off, but now he's not really producing goals.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because he's the captain. But you know, carry on, Scott, because I think that's just I just think it's a no-brainer. But I'm like you. I find it curious that Sterling seems to be in this little group of players that seems to fall out of favour.
You hinted last night, Keith, that maybe it's I'm
not sure that he likes loud voices in the dressing room, and I get the impression from Dujon Sterling that he would be a loud voice in the dressing room. Todd Cantwell, loud voice in the dressing room. Is anybody looking at this current Rangers team and really suggesting that Todd Cantwell wouldn't make it better? There's a whole bunch of curious decisions, and I'll come back to another one because Andy's brought it up when talking about Danilo. It was ludicrous to not include Danilo in the European squad. Right. It was just ludicrous. I just cannot understand what anybody was thinking. Yes, I understand he was injured, but look, he was always scheduled to come back roundabout now. You don't have any strikers.
I know.
Why would you not have him?
How they've left themselves in this situation with striking.
Unbelievable.
Honestly, it's inexplicable how you get into a campaign, especially a European campaign, when you've got Cyril Dessers and a 19-year-old Moroccan who's a mile away from being anywhere near good enough to be playing in the first team. I mean, it's just...
So why would you not include Danilo? And I know he's injured at the start of the season. Why would you not include him, Scott? And by the way, this isn't with retrospect. This was said at the time.
And by the way, they've not even got anybody else. Remember the run to Seville when Rangers were short of strikers because Morelos was injured or off or whatever, and Van Bronckhorst had to turn to Joe Aribo, who actually did
the final.
Scored in the final, and he played that in the build-up to the thing. Rangers haven't even got MD in the squad, MD else that's capable of doing that kind of job. Mm-hmm. So he's purely left himself with Dessers and Egerman, which just defies belief. And just to go back in Sterling, just one thing. To me, the thing this Rangers team really lacks is runners, guys that are going to run on. Sterling runs for fun. I mean, he's an absolute machine. And yet, he can't get a game in this team. I mean, we're talking about Celtic, the pace and the intent. Celtic players run all day. You seen that last night. To me, Rangers are a mile away from that. And I go back to the game on Sunday. The first goal they scored, the Dessers goal, right just after half-time, it all comes about from what felt like the first off-the-ball run anybody had made in a Rangers jersey. Connor Barron makes a run off the ball into Motherwell's box and it completely opens them up. Cherny obviously has to find him with a good pass. He slips into Dessers and they get a goal. They don't do nearly enough of that in terms of that kind of running, and Sterling gives you that in abundance. And I just think, he did it on Sunday. He would give them an injection or something. But like Jacko says, I think you need to give him a run of games. I feel sorry for Sterling because he's in, he's out, he's playing right wing, left back, centre mid. He's got to get a run, and his natural position is right back. And I know it's tough leaving a captain out, but James Tavernier has had a relatively poor season by his own high standards, and certainly for the game on Thursday, why not try it? Why not see what Sterling can give you? And Jacko's 100% right. For the next Old Firm game, which will be the cup final, they have to try something to nullify the threat of Maeda, and Sterling, in terms of his profile, looks ready-made for that, and the best guy they've got.
Rangers easy okay again on watching live on YouTube. He hasn't fancied Sterling since his comments at Dens Park when he said what the support were all thinking, and Clement came out with a load of nonsense. Up until then, Sterling was flying. And to be fair, I remember looking at Sterling last season, guys, and thinking he could be one that Rangers sell on for talk about this.
You looked at me, you thought, "Oh, you're the next Calvin Bassey."
Aye, basically, aye. You look like a guy that could fit into that model of come in, a couple of good years, sell on for.
And by the way, I have to say, and I know that this is going to sound as if you're just using any excuse to batter Philip Clement over the head with a baseball bat here, but that's part of management as well. The development of players, we've spoken about the difference that Brendan Rodgers makes in terms of bringing players on and improving their quality. I think that's a serious flaw with Clement, because there is the raw talent there in Dujon Sterling. A good manager and a guy that makes players better identifies that, finds his position, gets him in the team,
finds a way,
nurtures him, brings him on.
Yeah.
Dujon Sterling's been like a lost dog in there for I don't know how long. He comes in one game, as Scott said, he's playing left wing, right wing, defensive midfielder. He's played all over the place. At one point, the joke was that the only position he's not tried yet is in goals. That's. See if you've got a raw talent like that, and your job as the manager is to say, right, you are this. This is what I want you to be. You're going to be part of my team. But here's your position. This is how it's. But there's been no planning, no strategic planning for the development of Dujon Sterling, and I wouldn't surprise me if Dujon Sterling felt pretty annoyed about that.
It feels like it's more than just his football that he's been left out. You hinted at that.
Yeah.
It definitely feels that there's more to it, because football-wise, he should be playing.
Daniel, the other thing is, Rangers have been banging on all summer about player trading models, and
that's what I mean, Scotty.
A profit. So you've got a guy here with 24, 25, ex-England youth international, came through the ranks at Chelsea. His physical profile is exactly what you're looking for. He's impressed pretty much every time he's got a run or a start. And yet for some reason, Rangers seem hell-bent on decreasing his value as the season goes on, by either not playing him or playing him in the wrong position.
It's astonishing.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It is astonishing, and we said the same about the potential value that Yanis Hadji had on his head when he came back from the Euros, and that they managed to rid themselves of that potential asset as well. It is astonishing. I just don't know, and I might be a million miles out with this, but I do wonder if Philip Clement has a problem with big voices and big characters, and I wonder if Dujon Sterling has paid some kind of price for that, which I think would be ridiculous.
No.
And by the way, he didn't just leave him out the team, he then had a right go at him about his fitness.
I know. I was thinking that there, It wasn't just that, I know. Well, look, guys, big game for Rangers again tomorrow. I like putting everyone on the spot. Predictions, Keith?
I'm going to go for Olympiacos 3, Rangers 1.
Okay.
As I said, you've got kind of very little faith in this Rangers side on their travels, even domestically. So how are you going to have any faith in them doing anything in Athens? Let's not forget, this is a really experienced, dangerous opponent. I know Greek football's not all that fashionable, but they've got a manager in Jose Mendilibar, Spanish guy that won the UEFA Cup with the Europa League with Sevilla. Mm-hmm. He's won the Conference League with Olympiacos.
First Greek European trophy ever.
So this guy knows what he's all about. I don't know if there will be many household names that everybody will, but believe me, this will be a really dangerous, well-organised, streetwise, savvy European side.
If they win tomorrow, they guarantee progression to the knockout stages as well.
And they're at home, and apparently they didn't play particularly well at the weekend, and I think Mendilibar had a real go at his players after that game, and said, I fully expect something much more like ourselves when Rangers come to town. I think it could get pretty hot for Rangers on Thursday night. I agree with Andy, unless it's something ridiculous, which I don't envisage, a really heavy beating. I don't see that happening. But a defeat, I don't think does too much more damage to Clement in his position just now. I think it's domestically where it's at for him. But just in terms of what Rangers need is to try and, from wherever they can find it, get a shot in the arm and a bit of confidence and a bit of momentum. And if they could find that abroad, that would certainly help things, ahead of facing Hearts. But right now, you just feel this is a Rangers team that's stumbling around from one
Yeah.
ropey performance and dodgy result to the next.
Yeah. And Scott, how do you see tomorrow going?
Pretty much the same as Jack, I must admit. I could see Rangers probably scoring, but I think they'll probably lose 2-1 or 3-1. I agree with everything Keith says, that they can announce and know how with this Olympiacos team. I like to the atmosphere and that over there. I think Rangers will probably struggle. And El Cabi, the striker, who I don't know about his current form, but certainly when I watched him, en route to winning that Conference League last year, they beat Aston Villa in the semis and they got a hat trick, and he got the winning goal against Fiorentina in the final as well. A really dangerous, experienced striker, and I would worry about Rangers' backline. You don't know who's going to line up there, but it could be John Souttar, it could be Caston Virgil, young Dutch boy.
Certainly won't be Robin Proper.
No, God. I'd worry about them defensively against this team. So, listen, Andy's right. I do think away from home, they do seem to play with a wee bit more, in Europe certainly, a wee bit more freedom. They got a bit more space. So I can see them scoring a goal, but I think they'll lose the game. And like the other two boys, I don't think it'll affect Clement too much. His biggest game coming up is Sunday against Hearts, which is going to be massive for him.
Scott, I'm just saying, right, before we move on from that, what would worry me for Rangers is I'm looking at the body language of the players. It's not good. They don't look as if they're enjoying themselves when on a football pitch. They look as if it's all becoming too much like hard work. And if that is the attitude that they're going to take with them away to Olympiacos, let me tell you something, that doesn't end well.
No, recipe for disaster. Well, we'll be back tomorrow night with the Hotline Live after Rangers take on Olympiacos around 8 p.m. So we'll be reacting to the result from Athens. Until then, guys, that brings us to the end of tonight's show.
By the way, a bit remiss not to mention that Hearts are in European action tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Neil Critchley at home to Heidenheim, I think.
Yeah.
Bundesliga side.
Bundesliga opposition again. And if Hearts could get anything from that, it would give them the shot in the arm that they need ahead of a visit from Rangers. And, Critchley's got a lot on his plate right now and trying to take that team out of the position that's in second bottom of the table. He needs, just like Rangers, funnily enough, he needs to find a bit of momentum from anywhere he can get it. So these are actually two fascinating matches on their own. But, with the added complication of the playing against each other at the weekend.
Absolutely. Keith, Scott, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for watching at home, and we'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.